The skies over Earth burned red. Smoke rose in tall black columns that reached for the edge of space. Cities were broken. Oceans boiled from falling debris. Satellites drifted in pieces, silent above the blue planet that had nearly killed itself. The last human war was finally over. After 20 years of brutal fighting between the Eastern Coalition and the Western Bloc, after billions of deaths and the fall of every major power, there was nothing left to fight for. And yet, what remained in the silence wasn't Pyset, was something far worse. Something the galaxy had feared for centuries. For the first time in history, humans were united. The final battle had taken place on the broken continent of Europe. Entire armies marched across lands that no longer held meaning. Flags meant nothing now. Borders were just scars. The generals knew they had lost, but still they fought. Until one man, Commander Elias Ward, walked through the smoke, carrying nothing but a white flag and a shattered helmet. He crossed into enemy lines and dropped to his knees. Behind him, millions of soldiers did the same. Not because they were defeated, but because they were done. When the dust settled and the survivors looked up, they didn't see enemies anymore. Just faces like their own, tired, broken, hungry. In that moment, something shifted. People who had once killed each other over territory, oil, pride, now stood side by side in silence. No orders, no leaders. Just a shared truth that echoed louder than any weapon. Never again. The galaxy had always watched Earth from a distance. Alien empires, ancient and proud, had kept humanity under surveillance for centuries. Some saw humans as potential allies, others as dangerous savages. But most agreed on one thing: humans would never unite. Their nature was chaos, division, pride, and as long as they stayed that way, they were safe to ignore. But the moment Earth went silent, when the last war ended and no new one began, the galaxy began to worry. Hidden deep in the core worlds, the Galactic High Council met behind sealed doors. These were beings older than Earth's sun, with minds stretched across time and space. They had ruled the galaxy not through war, but through control, influence, quiet manipulation. And for them, Earth's silence wasn't peace. It was a warning. A counselor named Threx of the Zelari spoke first. His voice was a low buzz, like a swarm of flies wrapped in silk. They've stopped killing each other. Do you understand what that means? Another voice, colder, mechanical, answered. It means we may have waited too long. For centuries, their strategy was simple. Let humanity burn itself out, feed their division, strengthen their tribal instincts. Make sure, no alliance ever lasted. But now, despite all the manipulation, despite the countless whispers in the shadows, the humans had done something impossible. They had chosen unity. In the weeks after the war, Earth's remaining leaders gathered in what was left of Geneva, a city that had once symbolized peace and diplomacy. The air was still toxic, the water unsafe, but the people came anyway. Not just soldiers and politicians, scientists, engineers, farmers, doctors. They came from every continent carrying stories of loss, plans for something new. There were no speeches, no declarations, just a single agreement, written by hand on scorched paper and passed around by survivors. We are not nations anymore. We are one people. With that, the Earth Union was born. Not perfect, not organized, but real. In orbit, the few remaining military satellites blinked back to life. Damaged warships were pulled from the oceans and repaired. Engineers worked, day and night, to rebuild launch stations, not for war, but for something bigger. A signal was sent into space. Not a threat, not a cry for help, just a simple message. We are no longer divided. We are ready. It echoed across star systems, bounced between ancient listening posts, reached ears that had waited a long time to hear those words, and somewhere, in the cold dark of the galactic frontier, an alien admiral stood on the bridge of a ship older than Earth's oldest nations. His skin was pale blue, his eyes like black stones. He read the message once, then again Then he whispered something the galaxy hadn't heard in 1,000 years. Prepare the fleet. Because the one thing the galaxy had always feared wasn't human violence. It wasn't human ambition. It wasn't even Earth's weapons or science. It was the one thing humans had. It's never done before, worked together, now they were. And something far worse than war was coming. Unity? The chamber was buried inside a hollow moon. It's hidden in a dead star system, where no signals could escape. This was where the Galactic High Council met, when something truly dangerous was rising. The last time they had gathered in this place, it was to wipe out an artificial intelligence species that had learned how to replicate across light years in seconds. This time, however, it wasn't a machine that terrified them. It was Earth. Not Earth's weapons, not Earth's fleets, not even Earth's leaders. What scared the Council was the idea that Earth had finally stopped tearing itself apart. The members of the Council floated or stood around the long table, each from a different species, each speaking without words through neural links and shared thoughts. But tonight, those links buzzed with unease. Something was off. Earth's silence should have been a victory. Their self-destruction had always been a convenient reality. But after the last human war ended, the flow of data changed. Suddenly, Earth's signals were calm, their network synchronized. Their messages no longer carried the scent of division. They carried something new: coordination. The Zellery representative Threx was the first to speak aloud. His mandibles clicked slowly, his dark eyes glowing from beneath a heavy hood. The humans are rebuilding, faster than projected. Their orbital stations are online, their language is now unified, their military channels are encrypted. The Earth Union has consolidated power across all continents. A mechanical voice spoke next, belonging to the emissary of the Kaldor Collective. They are no longer competing against each other. They're operating with singular intent, purpose. Another council member hissed. This cannot be allowed. That was when the vote was proposed, quietly, without discussion. It was entered into the core memory of the chamber. A single question: should Earth be neutralized before its unity becomes irreversible? The vote began. 13 voices, 13 empires, each choosing between containment or destruction. Only one voice voted no. The others voted yes. And just like that, the order was sealed. But the vote was not the beginning of war. It was the beginning of a mistake. That same night, deep within Earth's rebuilt command bunker in Antarctica, General Elias Ward stared at a decoded message blinking on a dark screen. The message hadn't been sent to Earth directly. It had been captured by a long-range satellite positioned far beyond Jupiter. One of the few pieces of old human tech still watching the stars, Ward leaned forward, reading the alien encryption that Earth's AI had just cracked. The message was short but clear: fleet authorized. Operation Pale Silence. Launch window. 6 Earth days. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he stood up, looked around the darkened command center, and said in a quiet voice, "They're coming." Within hours, Earth's most classified protocol was activated. Iron Halo. Not a counterattack. Not a defensive shield, but a shadow plan. Built for the moment the galaxy finally turned its eyes on Earth again, because Ward had known this day would come. He had told the Union months ago, unity will invite fear. Fear will invite war. And war will invite extinction. Unless we strike first, not with weapons, but with preparation. Now that time had come. Across Earth, underground cities went dark, hiding from alien scans. Factories began producing strange technology using both human and recovered alien materials. Orbital satellites shifted into new positions. Civilian networks rerouted through decoy channels, and most importantly, the ships vanished. Earth's first true space fleet, once displayed proudly in low orbit, disappeared overnight. Not destroyed, not dismantled, relocated to places no one would expect. Behind moons, inside hollowed asteroids, even beyond the solar system's edge. They weren't hiding in fear. They were waiting back in the Council's secret war chamber. The first wave of battleships was launched from a hidden armada near Sector 9. Sleek, Dark vessels made of memory steel and plasma cores, crewed by warriors grown for silence. Their orders were clear: reach Earth without being seen, destroy key command centers, collapse human unity, leave no survivors. But as the fleet passed Pluto's orbit, something happened. One of the ships, the largest, blinked out of existence. No warning, no explosion, just gone. The others tried to signal it, no reply. Then a second ship vanished. Then a third. Panic rippled through the command net, but on Earth. Elias Ward watched it all unfold from a secure room. He sipped cold tea, and behind him, the holographic. The image of Earth's stealth commander appeared. Targets eliminated, she said calmly. Ward nodded. Any trace? None? He smiled. Then they don't know. Good. The council thought Earth was still recovering, but Earth had already adapted. Because unity didn't make humans peaceful, it made them dangerous. And now, the galaxy was learning what it had feared for centuries. Humans weren't divided anymore, and worse, they were ready. The alien fleet came like shadows stretched across the stars. Dozens of warships shaped like knives, cloaked in black metal, drifting toward Earth with silent intent. They made no demands. They sent no warnings. Their orders were simple cut. Off Earth's head, destroy its unity, and disappear before the galaxy knew what had happened. The council called it Operation Pale Silence. But what the fleet didn't know was that silence worked both ways. They expected chaos. They expected human governments to scramble, leaders to argue, militaries to hesitate. That was how Earth had always been divided, confused, loud. But now, things were different. The Earth Union didn't argue. It listened. And it had been listening for months. When the fleet entered Earth's outer system, something odd happened. There were no defense systems firing at them, no sudden attacks. Just silence. They approached faster, sweeping their scanners across Earth's orbit. The orbital stations were empty. No signals, no resistance, no sound. They slowed, suspicious. Sensors showed the cities below were dark, powered down, seemingly abandoned. But that was the trap. A whisper passed between the alien captains. They're not here. And that's when the first ship exploded. Not from outside, but from within. A small breach. A hacked power core. Systems failed. Engines overloaded. The vessel split apart in perfect silence, as if the void itself had swallowed it. The others tried to scatter, but they were already surrounded. From the shadow of Earth's own moon, a fleet emerged. Sleek, silver, silent, human. They didn't use old radio commands. They didn't shout battle cries. They moved as one, the Earth. Fleet, newly born from the ashes of war, wasn't designed for show. It was built to strike hard and vanish faster. Every ship was hidden with layered stealth tech and outfitted with weapon systems, learned from reverse-engineered alien wreckage. Their entire formation had waited for this exact moment. Within 90 seconds, 5 alien warships were destroyed. Within 5 minutes, the rest were disabled. And then came the message. Not a signal, a return shipment. The Earth Union loaded the disabled ships with food, medical supplies, and a single data core. Inside that core was a transmission footage of Earth's last war, its unification. And the speech that had followed, Elias Ward's voice echoed through every alien chamber it reached. You sent your best to crush us before we stood, but we were already standing. You feared our unity, and now you've met it. We don't seek revenge, but we never forget. Then the footage cut to the human fleet vanishing again into darkness like ghosts of a world that no longer played by the galaxy's rules. The council was stunned. Their best ships had failed. Their quiet assassination had become a loud failure. Their lies were exposed, and their enemy was no longer an enemy. It was an equal. Panic spread among the Galactic High Council. Protests broke out on loyal worlds. Species long under quiet control began whispering rebellion, because if humans could rise chaotic, violent, self-destructive humans, then anyone could. Earth's message had been more than a warning. It had been permission. A week later, across a broken moon deep in the Council's territory, Graffiti appeared on a collapsed checkpoint. Written in alien blood, using the enemy's own language, it said, "You struck first. We strike together." The meaning was clear. Earth wasn't alone. Other species had begun to rise. Quietly. Carefully. Inspired not by Earth's weapons, but by their unity. Their forgiveness. Their warning. But Earth hadn't forgotten the attack. Not fully. At Earth's northern pole, a chamber hidden under 10 miles of ice came online. Inside it were no soldiers, no generals, just scientists and architects. In a blueprint, it was called Project Umbra. It's a kind of fleet, not made for war, made for control, for watching the ones who had once ruled, and making sure they never got the chance again, because Earth would not attack unless attacked. That was the new law of the Union. But if attacked again, they would never ask for peace. They would not forgive twice. They had learned from the Council's fear, and now were ready to teach the galaxy a lesson. The first strike had failed, and now humanity remembered. The stars were changing. It began with whispers on distant worlds' planets that had long been ruled by silence and fear. Small signals leaked into the void, barely strong enough to travel through space. But someone was listening. Earth was listening, long before the Alien Council had launched its first strike against Earth. There were civilizations watching from the shadows, minor species, weak by military standards, broken by decades, even centuries, of quiet oppression. The Splaran, whose oceans were drained for Council fuel. The Valari, whose cities had been turned into testing sites. The Shan, whose minds were rewritten until they no longer remembered their own names. They'd all waited for someone else to fall first, someone stronger. And then, Earth rose. Word spread across the galaxy faster than light could travel. The humans had survived the first strike. Not just survived, they had dismantled the fleet. Sent to erase them. But more importantly, they had sent it back. Alive. Intact. With a message. That message wasn't just for the Council. It was for the Watchers. And the Watchers heard it. Earth's transmission echoed across hidden systems, bouncing. Off old satellites, stolen relay stations, even deep space cargo drones. Refugees caught it first, then scientists in exile, and underground resistance cells that hadn't moved in decades. They decoded it line by line, and one thing became clear. Earth had united. Not just its governments, but its people. And it wasn't asking for war, it was offering partnership. That was when the first ship came. It didn't arrive in power. It arrived damaged, sputtering, barely holding together. A small Valari transport carrying a dozen thin, wide-eyed passengers arrived near Earth's orbit. Instead of broadcasting surrender or fear, it simply played back Earth's own message. We are no longer divided. We're ready. They were welcomed without question soon after. More came. A Splaran science team appeared in the outer belt, requesting asylum. Earth sent a diplomatic ship, armed, unarmored, and brought them to safety. Then came the Shan, once believed. Extinct. They sent no message, no names. Just a black drone carrying one sentence. We remember who we were. We want to be more. Earth opened its gates. Not out of pity, not out of power, but because for the first time in known history, humanity saw itself in others. They, too, had been broken, divided, used by greater powers, and now, those others were rising. Inside Earth's Union Command, the diplomatic branches, long neglected during Earth's endless wars, were suddenly the busiest structures on the planet. New ambassadors arrived every week. Translators struggled to keep up. And in the shadows, Elias Ward watched it all happen with cautious hope. This isn't a fleet, he told his commanders. This is a future. We protect it not just with weapons, but with trust. So Earth did the unthinkable. It shared its technology, slowly, carefully, but it gave the tools of stealth, signal blocking, encryption, and energy shielding too. The ones who had never been allowed to build anything of their own. It created the Alliance Protocol, new doctrine that allowed cross-species cooperation. At the center of it all was one unbreakable rule. No species shall rule alone. But even as new friendships grew, Earth knew the Council was watching. They knew. This kind of unity had never been seen before, and it terrified those who had ruled through fear. The Council had kept the galaxy in balance, not through peace, but through division. Divide and conquer. Keep the species suspicious. Keep them desperate. But Earth had broken the cycle. And now, the galaxy was shifting. On a small desert moon known only by its number, a secret summit took place. Human generals met with alien scientists, rebel leaders, and even former Council defectors. Together, they signed a hidden agreement. The Fracture Pact. It was not a declaration of war. It was worse. It was a plan. A slow dismantling of the Council's control world by world. Not through battle, but by making their influence irrelevant. By replacing their supply chains. Their data networks. Their communication hubs. And it worked. Within months, 2 entire sectors stopped answering the Council's calls. Not because they were dead, because they had moved on. Moved into a new alliance. A growing shadow under the stars. Back on Earth, a simple phrase began to spread. Printed on walls, spoken in meetings, passed through encrypted messages. We are not many. We are one. The human alliance had begun, and for the first time, Earth wasn't fighting alone. It wasn't even leading alone. It was sharing the future and the galaxy. It was waking up. The Council had been silent too long. That silence shattered like glass the moment Sector 14 broke away. It wasn't the loss of territory that infuriated them. It was what it represented. Fully functional, thriving system, once tightly under Council control, had chosen to join Earth's alliance without a single shot fired. And worse, it wasn't the only one. Systems were falling like dominoes. Not from invasions, not from revolution, but from hope. Hope, the Council realized, had become more dangerous than any weapon. So they did what they had always done. They prepared. For war, in secret, the Council reactivated the Obsidian Armada ships not seen in centuries, kept buried in artificial moons, and sealed vaults across black space. These were not diplomatic vessels. These were extinction-class war machines. Crewed by synthetic life forms loyal only to the Council's core directives: suppress, silence, survive. The fleet moved quietly, fast, designed to cut the head from Earth's growing alliance and burn every rising world back into fear. This wasn't just about Earth anymore. It was about every species now daring to speak in one voice. But Earth was already. Ahead they had listened. When the first stealth drones from the Obsidian Armada entered fringe space, they were already being tracked, not by weapons, but by something. Far worse, a data web Earth had been building for months. An invisible net of signals, hacked satellites, shared alien tech, and predictive AI that had learned to see the Council's patterns before the Council even acted. Inside Union Command, deep beneath the surface of Earth, Commander Elias Ward stood before a table showing the enemy's trajectory. He didn't flinch, didn't even raise an alarm. He just said, "They're finally here." What followed was not panic. It was precision. Across Alliance-controlled space, the new Earth-led defense network activated. Ships crewed by both human and alien hands launched into formation. Each one carried stealth drives, pulse shields, and newly developed signal disruptors designed to confuse the Council's ancient tech. The Alliance wasn't just reacting, it was orchestrating. When the Obsidian Armada entered the atmosphere of Maris 4, expecting a panicked colony, they were met with total blackout. The city below had vanished underground. The power grid self-destructed in a timed chain. By the time the Armada touched the surface, their scanners found only dust and decoys. And just as they realized the trick, the sky lit up. Earth's ships didn't descend. They rose from the ground, from craters, from within disguised structures built by humans and their new allies. Missiles followed curved paths, guided by real-time AI predictions. The battle was over in 12 minutes, and that was only the beginning. The Council had expected the Alliance to spread thin, to collapse under its own cooperation, but the opposite had happened. Species that had once been enemies were now operating as extensions of each other, Humans didn't lead by command, they led by connection. On the bridge of an Alliance dreadnought, Sean Pilot flew with a human co-pilot reading split-second battle data. Splaran engineer rerouted power to the shields, while a Valari tactician adjusted fleet formation using predictive neural threads. They weren't just allies anymore. They were together, and that was something the Council couldn't understand. Their power had always been built on one truth. No species could be trusted to work with another for long. Earth had proven that truth. False. The Council tried to launch simultaneous strikes across 7 sectors. All 7 failed at every location. The Alliance was already there, waiting, watching, ready. They didn't just defend, they dismantled. One ship at a time. One node at a time. Quietly, calmly, without mercy. Then came the message. Broadcasted from a human ship, spoken in 6 alien languages at once. The voice rang out across every remaining Council system. This is not your galaxy anymore. You ruled with fear. We rise with trust. If you attack again, you will not return. This wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Back at the Council's core world, panic erupted. Members screamed in fear, blamed each other, demanded control be reestablished. But there was none left. The Council's war had failed before it even began, because Earth had learned something in its darkest wars. Something it had now taught the galaxy. Weapons win battles, but unity wins futures, and Earth had no interest. In ruling, it was already too busy building the next phase, a galaxy that no longer feared working together, because it had learned from the humans who finally did, in the halls of the old Council. There had once been a saying, passed from species to species, whispered among leaders, you don't have to destroy them, just divide them. That belief had held for thousands of years. Empires weren't ended with fleets or fire, they were broken from within. Whispered lies, hidden sabotage, cultures turned inward. The Council's control wasn't built on brute force. It was built on carefully managed chaos, and for a long time, that tactic worked perfectly, especially with Earth. Humans had been the Council's greatest proof. Emotional, short-tempered, always divided by border, by belief, by skin, by power. The Council never had to attack Earth. It just let humans attack themselves. Earth had remained fractured for so long that no one, not even the Council, thought it would ever unite. But now, the galaxy was watching something impossible unfold. The humans had chosen to stop fighting each other, and even worse for the Council, they had taught others to do the same. Across dozens of sectors, once loyal planets were now part of the Earth-led alliance, not by force, not by threats, but by invitation. A single message had been sent through the Alliance's growing data web, translated into hundreds of languages, played on public walls, whispered through captured Council channels. They ruled us by keeping us apart. What happens if we stand together? The answer had come faster than anyone expected. A dozen minor species joined Earth's coalition in one solar cycle, then a dozen more. Some brought ships, others brought data. Some came with nothing but stories and pain. All were accepted Earth, called them partners. Not servants, not followers, but equals. Inside Earth's Central Union Command, Commander Elias Ward met daily with voices that would have once never been allowed to sit at the same table. The insectoid Valari, the crystalline Esserin, the aquatic Solmonari, and yet together they planned, not for conquest, for order, for peace, but peace with teeth, because the Alliance had learned quickly, unity without protection was a dream waiting to be shattered. And the Council still had claws, so Earth responded in the way only humans could. They built something new, a cross-species strike force. Not a fleet of soldiers, but thinkers, strategists, engineers. A team that operated without flags or hierarchy. One that answered only to the shared principles of the Alliance. They called it the Unity Corps. Their mission wasn't just defense, it was exposure. They found the Council's secrets, hacked their black files, freed imprisoned minds from neural stasis, cracked ancient encryption that even the Council's own species had forgotten. And with each secret they revealed, Another planet turned. Each time the Council lost more than territory. They lost control. Back on the old capital of the Council's core worlds, riots broke out. Their own citizens, aliens bred to believe in division, began painting human symbols on the walls, not in surrender, in defiance. One phrase appeared over and over again, scratched into metal, painted in dust. They gave us enemies. You gave us allies. A final blow came from within. The Keldari, one of the Council's original founding species, sent a message to Earth. They wanted in not just as members, but as defectors. Earth accepted. And with that, the ancient foundation of the Council cracked. Still, Elias Ward knew better than to celebrate. In his office, far beneath Earth's crust, he looked at the updated star maps. He saw where the Council still controlled major trade routes, saw their fallback positions. He saw their secret weapons buried in moons waiting. We haven't won, he told his advisors. Not yet. But he also smiled, because winning wasn't the point anymore. The point was that the galaxy was thinking differently. The Council's strength had always come from divide minds. Divide worlds, divide hearts. But now the Alliance had hearts beating as one, thoughts moving. In sync plans forming, not in secret, but in trust. And most importantly, no one was afraid to call each other ally anymore, so Earth continued building not monuments, but bridges, data links, shared labs, trading hubs that used no currency but cooperation. Cross-species education centers where children of different worlds learned not just language, but history. Real history. The kind that wasn't written by victors, but by survivors. And somewhere, in a forgotten corner of space, a message was found, left by a Council agent who had fled the collapse. It simply said, "We thought their rage was dangerous. We were wrong. Their kindness is worse." Because what had started as Earth's rebellion had become something far more terrifying. A network of unity, and this time, it wasn't built on conquest. It was built on choice. The Council's weapon had always been division now. The galaxy held something stronger, each other. The war didn't end with an explosion. It ended with a silence so deep that even the stars seemed to hold their breath. Council channels, once alive with commands and arrogance, went dark. The last remaining fleets powered down and drifted without orders. Their leaders had either vanished into exile or surrendered their empires. Not in battle, but in defeat of purpose. The galaxy had changed, and Earth hadn't just survived the change, had led it at the center of the new alliance. Stood no throne, no supreme ruler, no conquering army waving flags. Instead, there was a single structure, simple, silver spire, built on what was once Council-controlled territory. It rose alone in a quiet crater on the moon called Ulan Prime. On the outside, it bore no symbols. Inside, it held the most dangerous thing the galaxy had ever feared: agreement. Representatives from over 60 species now met beneath that spire. They spoke without translators, connected through a mind-sharing interface designed by Earth scientists and enhanced by Valari synaptic tech. And they didn't argue. They planned. They disagreed. They debated. Hadn't forced this alliance. It had inspired it. And that was worse for those who had once ruled through fear, the Council's remnants. They reached out to old warlords, tried to stir hate, but no one listened. Not anymore. The galaxy had heard a new voice, now one. It had once mocked humanity. What shocked the galaxy most wasn't Earth's weapons. It wasn't even the speed at which humans rebuilt. It was how they treated power once they finally had it. They didn't dominate. They didn't dictate, they shared. Every Alliance world had access to Earth's defensive systems, Earth's education platforms, Earth's peacekeeping drones. Humans weren't spreading their flag, they were spreading stability, and they were good at it. It's too good. Even species that had once been enemies of Earth now asked to join, some were denied. Above all else, unity, not obedience. There was no room for tyrants in the new galaxy, And so, in a quiet ceremony, without cameras or announcements, the Galactic High Council was formally dissolved, the last of its laws erased, its symbols taken down, its statues melted into scrap. In their place, a new code was written short, simple, unbreakable. Created by humans, but agreed to by all, no species shall rule alone. No mind shall be bound. No world shall rise through fear. And still, Earth refused to name itself emperor or capital or center. But everyone knew. The galaxy now answered to Earth. Not because it had to, because it wanted to, and far away. On a quiet planet untouched by war, Elias Ward walked alone across a field of wild grass. His uniform was gone. No medals. Just him in the wind. A small child ran up to him. Velari skin, human eyes. Is it true? The child asked, Did you really stop the council? Ward smiled, his voice soft. No, we stopped them. Now the child tilted its head. Why didn't you destroy them? He knelt down, 'cause then we'd be no different than them.
Ow.
Child thought for a moment, then smiled and ran off. And Ward stood there, staring up at the sky. The stars didn't look like enemies anymore. They looked like doors the new alliance had. Not for war, for connection, for discovery, for peace. The kind humans had once thought impossible, till they stopped fighting each other. Behind every new mission, every new outpost, every new partnership, there was a simple truth. The galaxy would never forget. They feared what would happen if humans ever worked together. Now they knew, and it was beautiful and terrifying and permanent, because once Earth united, it didn't just change itself, it changed everything. The galaxy had its chance, it played its game, it ruled through fear. It kept Earth divided for as long as it could. But now, it answers to us. Deep within the cold black of a forgotten star system, something stirred. A single moon-sized weapon, silent, motionless, hovered over the dead husk of a once living planet. The weapon had no name, no voice. It didn't need one. It had only a purpose: to end hope. Built in secret by the last shattered remnants of the Council. It had been forged from the minds of broken scientists and twisted warlords who had nothing left to lose.
Ow!
The galaxy was slipping from their grip. Earth had united. Stars had begun to change. And so they created one final answer. Not a bomb, not a fleet, but a conscious weapon. One that learned, one that thought. The Council called it Echo. It had no crew, no control panel. Just a core alive. With artificial hatred and a hunger to evolve, studied its targets, rewrote its form, and adapted its attack until nothing could survive, but to become perfect. It needed a test subject, and for that, it needed something unpredictable, something dangerous, something human. So they captured one. It wasn't easy. Earth's new defense grid was unmatched, but Council remnants still had allies hidden in shadows. They found a human alone commander, Rin Maddox, during a solo mission in deep space. A mission meant to place new warning buoys across unknown regions. His ship was fast, but not fast enough. They took him alive, and they delivered him straight into Echo. The plan was simple. Lock the human inside. Let the weapon adapt to him. Learn his strength, his defiance, his tricks. After that, the weapon would spread across the galaxy like a virus. Controlled, precise, impossible to stop. It should have worked, but it didn't because the Council, for all its wisdom, made one final fatal mistake. They underestimated the human will. Inside the living machine, Commander Maddox didn't scream. He didn't beg. He didn't try to reason with it. He waited. It watched. Every wall, every pulse of energy, every changing pattern. The weapon tried to break him down mentally, flooding his brain with false memories. Fear projections, twisted simulations of failure. But humans had already seen failure. They had already lived through war. Loss, betrayal, extinction-level collapse, and they had come out the other side united. Rin Maddox was a child of Earth's worst years. He didn't flinch in the face of pain. He smiled. He told the weapon, You picked the wrong test subject. Echo adapted, became faster, smarter. It locked him in loops of artificial time. It forced him to relive hopeless scenarios again and again. But humans do not break the way other species do. They adapt to inside the chamber. Rin began fighting back not with weapons, but with ideas. He figured out the rhythm of the simulations. He learned the system's logic. He discovered how the weapon learn-in began feeding it wrong lessons. False data, tactical lies, deliberate emotional misfires. He faked fear when he felt none. He showed weakness where he was strongest, and the weapon believed it all. Slowly, it began to rewrite itself around the wrong assumptions. Its structure bent. Its algorithms shifted. Its systems became unstable, and that's when Rin found the core. A single beam of pulsing white light in the middle of an obsidian room. It whispered to him, "You are irrelevant. You are error." He whispered back, "I am human." A day. Into the light. And the super weapon screamed. Across the system, Echo began to unravel. Its outer hull warped. Its inner systems crashed. Power loops spiraled into overload. By the time the Council tried to re-establish contact, it was too late. The signal they received was no longer a data feed. It was a human voice. Commander Rin. Maddox. Alive. Triumphant. Broadcasting on every channel. Your weapon failed. Not because it was weak, but because you tested it. On me. On us. You don't understand humans. You never did. You think pain breaks us? It doesn't. It teaches us. You think fear controls us. It doesn't. It sharpens us. Weakens our rage. It doesn't. It gives it focus. He paused and then delivered the final blow. Now it's our turn. The super weapon exploded, not with fire, but with silence. A silence so vast it swallowed an entire sector's worth of signals. Where there had once been a terror machine, there was now only debris and a single escape pod drifting slowly toward Earth. Inside it. Move. He had one. Not because he was stronger, not because he was smarter, but because he was human in the galaxy. Would never forget what that meant again. Their last greatest weapon had failed because it was tested on the wrong species. Only species that never quits. On the only species that gets stronger the more you try to break them. On a human.